All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, continuing on in my quest talking about databases. Now, in particular, I'm transitioning over to MySQL, and I'm going to be looking at this document that's about 40 pages or so in length. It's called MySQL by Examples for Beginners. What you see up on the screen at the top of the screen is the URL in which this particular document is located. All right. So this is what am going over with my class, and I'm going to go over it here, but I'm going to do it or try to do it very slowly, very deliberately. Okay. So the first thing to realize is these are commands that they're going to talk about regarding an entire database. These are commands they're going to be talking about regarding tables. And these are commands they're going to be talking about regarding records. All right, and then they're also going to mention the show warnings. So let's break this down. All right, this is the way that I typically explain this stuff to my students. It'll almost seem like we're taking a step backward here, to be honest with you. All right, but I'm going to come down here a little bit, and I'm going to say, what's a character? All right, and I'm going to define that as being any keyboard character. In other words, alpha, numeric, special character like a period or something like that. We'll say that can or potentially can represent data. And what's data? Basically, it's anything that may or may not make sense to anyone viewing it. Whereas information should make sense to any or all viewing it. And that might sound a little confusing, so let's talk about it for a second. Let's assume that I work at a bank and I'm a teller at a bank. And it's the end of the day, and although a lot of this stuff today is basically being done and it's so automated, but let's suppose that I'm creating a report and I'm putting in a whole bunch of deposits for the day. I'm creating some kind of a deposit report. All right. And I've got a whole list of deposits that have come in during the day that I'm entering into a computer. Now, another person might come by and look at that, and it just looks like a big series of numbers that may or may not make sense to them. But to me, it makes sense. So that's data. It makes sense to me viewing it, but it doesn't make sense maybe to somebody else who doesn't know what that data represents. Well, really what computer systems are about are converting data into information. So once all those values are entered or input into the computer and a report is created, now that report becomes information. And again, anyone who is able to read and understand, what's in there should be able to understand that data that was converted into information. That data contains characters. All right. Well, when I take and I have one or more related characters, I have a field. So I could have a field that was called first name. And I might say that it can be up to 30 characters in length. Now notice one or more related characters. Well, what if I had a field called middle initial? I don't want a period. My middle initial happens to be P, as my middle name is Paul. All right, but that would be a single character, just a P. All right. When I put one or more related fields together, I get a record. And a record oftentimes looks like a spreadsheet. All right. It oftentimes looks like a spreadsheet. It's got rows and columns. The rows represent the records. Each column represents the fields. That brings me to a table. And a table is one or more related records. If I'm going to be working with everyone who works at a company, maybe when I start the company up, I'm the only one who works there. So I only have one record. All right. Ideally, over time, I'll have more records. So a database is one or more related tables. Now this is it in a nutshell. All right. Since about the 1970s, virtually all databases have been relational, where you're able to relate things. In fact, you may or may not have heard of the term RDBMS, which stands for Relational Database Management System. And examples of that include Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server, and there's other ones. But they allow you to create databases which consist of tables, which consist of records, which consist of fields, which consist of characters, which attempt to convert data into information. So that's what we're going to be talking about. All right? And what I'm going to do, sorry, that's the last presentation that I was just working on. So what I'm going to do, and I think I'll stop right here, not really very far into this, I'm only 7 minutes, but it's a good introduction, is I'm going to go through this 40-page document. And in that time, we will go over database or high-level commands. Then we'll break it down into table-level commands. Then we'll break it down into row-level commands. So we'll go from the database to the table to the record. All right? Records are often also known as rows. They're sometimes, especially in the Great Britain vernacular, they're known as tuples. T-U-P-L-E-S, or they usually pronounce them tuples. All right? Finally, we'll get down to field level, and fields are often referred to as columns. All right? So we're going to go through this. All right, we're just going to take it from the top. Okay? So I'll be back with that. So I'm going to just entitle this MySQL by Examples for Beginners. I'll be back with the first lecture, starting with number 2 right here shortly.